Hey everybody, it's Dana and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're playing with the Altenew Craft Your Life Project Kit Silk Art. I love this kit. So in the kit you're going to get a beautiful stamp set that works fabulously on cards, but I'm not going to use this today. I'm going to set that aside. I am actually going to use the layering stencils. Now within this kit, you're also going to get an embossing folder, which is absolutely stunning. I love this, and we're going to use this as well. And you also get dies to go with this. So you can cut these out and you never have to worry about fussy cutting. All right, for my colors today, I decided to go more on a purpley kind of side. So I pulled out a few of my inks from Altenew. I have 4 shades of purple. I'll be sure to link them below. And I also have 4 shades of green, and that is going to work for our leaves today. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So to start, I'm going to grab the embossing folder. Now, what's so great is that the stencil works over this embossing folder because, usually we have our embossing folders, we emboss them, but we don't actually have stencils to color those embossing folders. So that's what I love about this kit. I'm just lining up a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, just to make sure I have it even across this paper, because this is going to kind of be my base. And once I have everything lined up, I can run this through my die cutting machine. Now remember, this is just an embossing folder, did not cut, but as you can see, I get this gorgeous impression of these flowers. Absolutely stunning. All right, now since we have this beautiful design, we can go ahead and start working with the stencils. Now there's 3 stencils in this kit. One is going to do the flowers and one is going to do the leaves. You're also going to get a detailed one as well. So I'm starting off with doing the leaves. I have them over the embossed area, and you can tell it's over the embossed area because your stencil kind of locks into place over those raised edges. So once you have that, you know you have everything lined up exactly or pretty close to where it needs to be. I did use a couple of pieces of purple tape just to hold this in place. Now, when I started this, I used some greens and I sped this up just a little bit. I'm using a small detail brush from Altenew, and I'm going in with my lightest shade first. Going in with the lightest shade really allows me to get a really good color blend on this. So if you're doing this and you really want to have like deep colors, start with a very light green and then work your way through those colors. As you can see, I'm only using 1 stencil. So it's not like I have 3 or 4 stencils here. I'm just using 1 stencil. But by changing up the color towards like the bottom of my leaves and also changing up the pressure of how much ink I put down, I'm going to be able to create some beautiful leaves on this card. Again, just using 1 stencil. So I went ahead and I used my first 2 light colors, and now I'm going in with my darker color. I believe this is olive, but you can totally see just at the base of those flowers how deep and dark and saturated the color became. I'm going to add just a tad bit more, and this is moss, so just that I have a really great gradient. As you can see, this is not taking me very long to do. I just sped this up just for video purposes, but the stenciling took me probably less than 3 minutes, if that. So after I have all of that shading down, I can go ahead and pull back this stencil. And you're going to see how gorgeous this is. So look how beautiful those leaves are. I have really great definition because I chose to leave the stencil in place and just add a lot of color. Next, I'm coming in with the flowers. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to tape these down. Now, if you did not want to use the stencil with the embossing folder, I think it would be beautiful if you like whitewashed or color washed a piece of paper and then ran it through the die cutting machine, and then you will have beautiful color there. Or I think you can even probably go in with Copic markers and color up this beautiful image. So now I'm coming in with my purples. And once again, I'm coming in with that lightest shade. Now remember, I'm building up my color here. So I'm just going from one color to the next, increasing either pressure or the amount of ink, and that is going to help me get those different shades. But again, I'm not moving that stencil. That stencil stays in place and I'm just changing up my colors. Again, I'm using one of the small Altenew blending brushes, and I finished up my first two light colors. And you'll also see I always tap off the ink on the stencil just to make sure I'm not bringing too much to the image. So as I work through these colors, you're seeing the intensity of this flower come to life. And again, you see that I tap off that ink because I just don't want to bring it directly to it and then it just be a little bit too heavy-handed. All right, once I'm done with this layer, I'm going to go ahead and pull this back and look how gorgeous these flowers are. Absolutely stunning. So now what I want to do is just to make sure I get the last bits done. And this is my third stencil, and I'm just going in with the lightest shade on this one. I'm just going in over the areas that I know do not have color yet. Excuse my head, but I just needed to get right over the top of my desk so I can see what I was doing. Again, these stencils are super, super easy to use and easy to line up. And that's what's going to help us achieve a very, very pretty card. All right, once I get all of that stenciling done, you're going to see how gorgeous this card looks. So look at the variations of color I got. Remember, I built up my color holding down just the first stencil on each layer, and I was able to achieve this gorgeous background. Now for this, I want to die cut this piece out. I love die cutting this out because one, it's raised from it being an embossing folder, and two, I love that you can get the coordinating dies with this kit. Again, this could have been easy to fussy cut, but look, if you can get a die in a kit, I always suggest go for it because it just to me gives a cleaner look compared to if you were trying to fussy cut it. I am adding just a little bit of purple tape just to hold this in place because, you know, we did a lot of pretty coloring today and I really don't want to mess this up at this point. Once I get that tape into place, I can go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine. Now, once this is cut out, you're going to see how absolutely gorgeous this flower is. Isn't this stunning? And again, it's from that embossing folder. So I'm going to get texture, but I'm also going to get height on this, and look how gorgeous. So that is that right there, and it's stunning. So with that in mind, I'm going to run another piece of this panel because I want this to be my background for my card. So I went ahead and I ran that embossing folder one more time through a machine or through my die cutting machine. And I'm just going to trim this down. So I end up with I think this was a 5.5 by 5.5 inch card. So I'm lining everything up and then I can go ahead and press that down. And now I'm going to have a very pretty background for my card. Again, I used the embossing folder for both of these. So I used it for my raised background that I'm going to have. And then I also used it for the image I'm going to place on top. Now, I wanted to keep this card really simple, so I'm choosing just to add a small sentiment in the bottom corner of this. The sentiment is coming from the Silk Art stamp set that comes in this kit as well. And I'm just going to line up my flowers first to kind of figure out where I want my sentiment to be. Now, again, if you were making this card and you did not want to add a sentiment and you just wanted something in the inside of the card, you could totally do that as well. I felt that I could fit just a small sentiment in here that would not compete with how beautiful this card is. I really don't want the sentiment to compete with the flower, and I really don't want it to compete with the raised background. So if you're doing this type of card, I would suggest to use smaller sentiments and not larger ones that might take away from the beauty of your image or what you've colored. So in this case, I'm just using a very small sentiment on here. I went ahead and grabbed some ink and then I can go ahead and press that down right into the corner. Now, if I wanted to leave the card just like this, I could, because this is absolutely gorgeous, just having that embossed background and not having anything on top. But of course, we've colored up this gorgeous piece, so we must layer this up. Now, again, this card is going to be a very square card is going to be 5.5 by 5.5. So I went ahead and cut down a piece of paper, and I'm just going to score it at 5.5 so I can have a full square card. Now, if you don't have envelopes for this size and you have an envelope maker, you can totally customize an envelope for this. In my case, I'll probably just put this in a larger envelope and mail it off. I usually always, when I mail cards or something big, I'm going to make sure to put that in a priority envelope. All right, now all I have to do at this point is glue this down. Now I am going to use a wet medium for this, and this card is going to be even on the, or this panel rather, is going to be even on the card base. So make sure to add some glue everywhere on here because I really want this to stick down. And then I can use my mat and line this up and place this onto the top of the top folding card. Now remember, if you wanted to just keep it clean and simple, this right here will be a gorgeous card. So if you want to make a couple of these in different shades of cardstock colors, and it would be beautiful just on its own. But of course, I really wanted the flow of this flower on here, and I'm just making sure not to cover up all of the panel. Now I did want to pop up this these gorgeous flowers. So instead of using foam tape, I went ahead and used the die cut. I used the die cut and I cut it 2 more times just out of white cardstock. This is a great way to add dimension to your cards, especially when you have these larger images, and it makes sure that everything is laid down evenly. I know sometimes when I use foam tape, when I mail it, I might get like some buckles in it. So instead, I choose to layer up. If I have the die cut, I choose to layer up that image. So this way I don't have to use foam tape. I'm going to get that height I want without having to worry about some areas maybe sagging. So you can see how thick that piece ends up being. Now, if you really wanted a lot of dimension, I would say, you know, die cut this 4 or 5 times and you're really going to have a lot of height on your card. For me, having the top colored piece and then the 2 pieces below or underneath gives me just the right amount of height. Now, I know when I send this through the mail, if it was on a regular card and I double that up like that, I don't have to pay extra shipping. So just keep that in mind as well. So once I have all the glue on the back, I can go ahead and place this in place. And look how stunning this card is. I think this might be absolutely one of my favorite cards. I just love the simplicity of the white and then the bold pop of color. Now, after I was looking at this, I was like, I think I want to add a little bit more of that black, kind of pull it into my piece. So I went ahead and I'm using the packaging from the kit, and I'm also just going to grab some black ink. I'm just going to swipe that down onto the package. I'm going to grab a water brush, and I'm just going to add a little bit of splatter on this. So I'm just mixing some water directly with that ink, and I'm going to make sure to cover up my flower, and I'm just going to do some water splats. Now you can do this with ink. I know a lot of people think like, oh, you cannot use like regular ink to do splatters. Yes, you can. You can do it. Just be very careful with it. So as you can see, I'm just getting like a blacky gray that's just going to give my card a little bit of more texture in the background. Now, if you wanted that texture to also be on the flowers, just remove your hand out of the way and you'll be able to have it clean and simple. All right, once I think I have enough splatter down, I can go ahead and set that packaging aside. And again, it's not taking away from the card, it's just giving me a little bit of texture in the background. Can you guys see that? I absolutely love just having that little bit of splatter, and I love the dimension of this card. All right, everybody, that is the tutorial for today. I will see you guys back in another video soon. Take care. Bye-bye.